It's news time on Freedom. My name is Mykhailo Baranov. Hello, and now to the important events of Friday. Russian occupation forces have launched another strike on the center of Kherson. A city bus came under fire from a multiple rocket launcher system. As a result of the hit, the driver was killed on the spot. 5 passengers were injured. The injured were hospitalized with concussions, blast injuries, and shrapnel wounds. 2 people are in serious condition. The Russian army also attacked border communities in the Chernihiv region. As a result of a strike by an FPV drone, a forestry service vehicle and the City House of Culture were destroyed. A fire broke out at the impact site, and the facades and windows of neighboring buildings were damaged. According to the Regional Military Administration, a total of 44 shellings were recorded in the region over the past day. 1 person was killed and 2 were injured as a result of a strike by the Russian army on the Kharkiv region. This was reported by the head of the local military administration, Chernihiv. Russian occupiers attacked the region with drones of various types, as well as launching a missile. Last night, the Russian Federation's army launched 112 aerial weapons at Ukraine. Among them were 70 Shahed-type drones and 1 Iskander-M ballistic missile. Air defense forces neutralized 80 targets belonging to the Russian occupying forces. On Friday night, Russian troops once again attacked Zaporizhia with drones. 2 women were injured. As a result of the strikes, 6 apartment buildings and 10 private houses in 2 districts of the city were damaged. The blast wave blew out windows and destroyed balconies and roofs. Details of the attack and how Zaporizhia is recovering after the strike in our report.
The attack on the city happened around midnight. One of the explosions was captured by a city surveillance camera. A Russian attack drone dove straight into a residential neighborhood. Vladimir says he woke up to the roar of the drone's engine and didn't even have time to run into the hallway. I was already asleep, and then I hear it, so loud, really loud, and then boom. I jumped up thinking, what do I do? Where do I go? Terrifying. The drone crashed onto the road and exploded just 20 meters from the house. See that spot? It's so small, isn't it? But it brought so much grief to people. It's terrible. A nightmare. When will they finally stop? The blast wave damaged balconies and shattered windows in 6 9-story buildings.
It was really loud. We thought it was right next to our building. We came here at night and saw what it had done. That's how it is. There was supposed to be a ceasefire starting at midnight, Trump's time, but it's still rumbling on. In
another part of the city, another drone attacked private homes. As a result, one of them was almost completely destroyed, and 6 more were badly damaged. A fire broke out, and rescuers only managed to put it out in the morning. Local residents are convinced that the Russians are deliberately targeting residential buildings.
No, it's not by oxyming. They fly around, always looking to harm people.
The beginning of January, Russian drones and missiles have damaged 22 apartment buildings and 13 private homes in Zaporizhia. 3 civilians have been killed. Ole Pritikin and Boris Yakovenko from Zaporizhia for Freedom TV channel.
Kiev and Warsaw discussed the transfer of MiG-29 fighter jets to Ukraine and deepening defense cooperation. This was reported by Defense Minister Mykhailo Fedorov following a conversation with Poland's Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Defense, Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz.
Fedorov noted that in 2023, Warsaw had already transferred MiGs. Now, the parties have agreed to work together on modernizing them to improve their effectiveness and target engagement. The ministers also discussed joint defense projects and strengthening air defense. Polish technologies are already an important part of our short-range air defense. We are ready to further develop cooperation and expand the radar coverage. For our part, we are ready to share Ukrainian solutions, particularly in countering Shaheds. Battlefield data and our practical experience can be useful for strengthening the capabilities of the Polish army. Mykhailo Fedorov, Minister of Defense of Ukraine, on Telegram.
The U.S. will pay for the maintenance and repair of Ukrainian F-16 fighter jets in Belgium. According to the Pentagon's website, a contract worth $235 million has been signed and will be in effect until 2029. The document provides for medium and high-level technical maintenance of F-16 aircraft, as well as their engines and material support. For Ukraine, 279 combat engagements were recorded on the front line over the past day. According to the General Staff, the situation remains most tense in the Pokrovsk direction. There, Ukrainian defenders repelled 87 assaults by Russian occupiers. Another 42 attacks were repelled in the Huliapol sector, 23 in the Alexandrivka sector, 19 in the Konstantinivka sector, 17 in the southern Slobozhansky sector, and 13 in the Lyman sector. In addition, 12 times, Russian troops unsuccessfully tried to storm the positions of the Ukrainian armed forces on the Kupiansk bridgehead, and another 11 in the northern Slobozhansky and Kursk sectors. According to the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine, Russian Federation troops are not advancing in the border directions.
For more than 2 weeks now, the enemy has been striking both the settlement of Tetyarne and the nearby villages of Nesterno and Krule. They're trying to expand the area fighting on Ukrainian territory. They're trying to advance deeper into our country, but are suffering huge losses without achieving any results. The defense forces are conducting active search and strike operations to clear the area. This is Andriy Demchenko, the official spokesperson for the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine. 1310.
Russian occupiers were eliminated by Ukraine's defense forces over the past day. According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, this means that the total combat losses of Russian troops have already exceeded 1,238,000 personnel. Ukrainian defenders also destroyed a Russian tank, 4 armored vehicles, 15 artillery systems, 2 multiple rocket launchers, 1 enemy air defense system, and 130 units of automotive and special equipment yesterday. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine reported the destruction of several logistical facilities belonging to the Russian occupiers. They also clarified that over the past day, Ukrainian defense forces detected and successfully struck an OSA anti-aircraft missile system of the Russian Federation Army near the settlement of Semenevka in the temporarily occupied territory of Zaporizhia region. The General Staff emphasized that a direct hit on the target was recorded and also reported on other strikes in the area of responsibility of the armed forces.
In addition, a repair facility was units of an enemy special forces brigade near Tokmak in the Zaporizhia region, supply depots of an artillery regiment near Okrimovka, as well as facilities belonging to the 76th Air Assault Division of the Russian Federation in the area of Kirillovka. From the statement of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine on Telegram,
Kiev accepts 18 out of 20 points of the American peace plan. This was stated by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy during a conversation with journalists. The head of state emphasized that the territorial issue remains the most problematic and difficult for compromise. At the same time, at the upcoming meeting in Abu Dhabi, Zelenskyy expects constructive dialogue and a direct response from the Russian side to the American peace plan.
Overall, however, the result depends on Putin. That's exactly how things work for them. They discuss certain matters with our delegation and with the American delegation. They responded to what they could, and for what they couldn't answer, they listened to the arguments. What's important is that the meeting wasn't about history lectures. This is a very important point because it's one thing if you came just to get information and delivered some fantastical historical background from a playbook that everyone has heard many times before. But it's another thing entirely if you're moving toward real steps to end the war. That's why we're now waiting for feedback from the Russian side and from the American side. And, in our view, Russia and America have already had the relevant contacts. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine.
The temporarily occupied Crimea and part of Donbas are Ukrainian territory. They do not have the right to national self-determination. This statement was made by UN Secretary General António Guterres. According to him, in this matter, the principle of Ukraine's sovereignty prevails.
There are 2 important principles. The first is the territorial integrity of the state. The second is the self-determination of peoples. We have concluded that the principle of self-determination cannot be applied to Crimea and Donbas. Therefore, in this situation, the principle of Ukraine's territorial integrity prevails. António Guterres, UN Secretary General, in a comment to RBC Ukraine.
Suspend Russia's membership in the Board of Governors of the International Atomic Energy Agency. Ukraine made this call at an emergency meeting of the IAEA. This was reported by First Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Energy of Ukraine, Denis Shmyhal. He emphasized that Moscow systematically and deliberately attacked substations supplying external power to Ukrainian nuclear power plants, which means it intentionally undermined nuclear safety. This is one of the IAEA's 7 pillars. Therefore, Russia cannot take full part in the agency's main political body. S.H. Mykhailo specifically drew attention to the situation at the temporarily occupied Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, which has experienced 12 blackouts since the start of the full-scale invasion.
We called on member states to impose comprehensive sanctions against Rosatom and to limit cooperation with this company in all possible areas. We raised the issue of suspending Russia's membership in the IAEA Board of Governors and also discussed the intention to initiate amendments to the statute of the IAEA in order to restrict the rights of the aggressor state. It's time to introduce real accountability for acts of aggression that undermine nuclear safety. Denis S.H. Mykhailo, First Deputy Prime Minister of Ukraine, Minister of Energy of Ukraine, on Telegram.